So the partner interview is generally the final stage of the application process, and you've done well to get yourself into that position. You've done your numerical test, you've done your aptitude tests, and so you only have this one final hurdle to go over before you can land that job with one of the big four accounting firms. The partner interview is certainly daunting, but there's plenty that you can do to prepare yourself ahead of the day. And in this video, I'm going to share my thoughts about what you can do to set yourself up for success in the partner interview. So to get to this stage, I'm sure you must have done some preparation for the numerical and the aptitude test, and you might even have had an interview with the manager or senior manager in that team. So similarly, you want to make sure that you're well prepared for the interview with the partner as well. So there are a few questions which are pretty much guaranteed to come up, and so you can prepare yourself in advance for these. One of these questions is when they ask you to tell them about yourself. And so naturally you'll talk about any relevant work experience that you have, and you'll talk them through your educational background. But don't forget to give some personal information as well, such as where you grew up, for example, or any hobbies that you're into, because this will convey that you're a well-rounded person and it'll give a more complete picture of yourself, which is what they're trying to understand. They're trying to work out whether they can get along with you, as well as whether the other members of their team will get along with you as well. So there are a couple more questions which are guaranteed to come up, and those are why you chose that role particularly, and why that firm as well in comparison to the other big four firms. So when it comes to the role, I'm sure you must have done some research for your prior interview, and so you want to make sure that you refresh your mind by reading those notes. I've also made a video talking about what the different departments at the big four do, and I'll leave a link to that on the end screen so you can watch that one after this one ends, and you might be able to pick up a few points which you weren't aware of before. Clearly, the partners don't expect you to know the details around the role because you haven't done the job yet, but they do expect you to have a high-level understanding of what their team does and what the role entails on a day-to-day basis. Another piece of advice is don't be afraid to ask partners specific questions about the role during the middle of the interview. You don't need to wait till the end of the interview until the partner gives you permission to ask them questions. You can ask these questions in the middle of the interview as long as they're not simple questions, ones that they'd expect you to know the answers of. So for example, if you're applying to the audit department, don't ask the partner what does an auditor do, because clearly they expect you to know that already. By asking specific questions about the role during the middle of the interview, you're doing two things. One, you're making it more of a conversation rather than an interview, which will help you to relax. And two, you're showing enthusiasm to learn more about the role, which will only go down well. In relation to why you've chosen that firm specifically, make sure that you have a look on the internet for articles which say that that firm works with certain sectors a lot, or that they've employed a new policy for their staff which paints it in a good light. Bringing up points like these will show that you've done your research about that firm specifically. Also, make sure that you Google the partner's name, because you might find interviews that they've done with the press. I know in my department, corporate finance, the partners speak to the press a lot after they've finished a deal, and so you can find out which deals their team has worked on in the recent past, and you can bring these up in the interview. And if you can't find any interviews done by the partner themselves, have a look at the head of the department, because they might have done a few interviews with the press, and so you might be able to find out what kind of companies that department has been working with and what the ambition of that department is. And you can certainly bring this up during your interview in reference to why you want to work in that firm and in that department. Another great source of ammunition for these questions is by asking the interviewers from the previous stage. So for example, you might have interviewed with a manager or a senior manager from that team, and so you can ask them about what the culture in the team is like, what the role involves day to day, and you can bring all this information back during the partner interview to show that you've got a good understanding about the business and what you're getting into. Another really important step during your preparation is to have answers prepared for your competency questions. You need to have examples ready for when you worked in a team, taken up leadership responsibilities, and have worked under time pressure, etc. There's no doubt that you'll be asked questions such as these, and so make sure that you've got plenty of examples prepared beforehand, and so you don't want to be repeating a lot of the examples over and over again. You'll also want to make sure that you're up to date with the latest economic and business news in case you get tested for your commercial awareness. You don't need to go overboard here and start memorizing details, but you do need to be aware of recent headlines and the context behind them. Gaining this knowledge is incredibly easy There are multiple different sources of information, such as different news articles and podcasts, etc. And so there's no excuse in not doing well in answering these questions. On the day, naturally you might be nervous, but you should take comfort from the fact that you've done plenty of things right to get yourself in that position. The firm would never invite you to have a meeting with a partner without a reason, and you should take confidence from the fact that they certainly see you as having potential to be part of the firm. Doing all your preparation well, all the things I talked about at the start of the video, is incredibly important because it means that you'll come across as much more knowledgeable about the business and about the role. And also, when you first get into the room, you'll be much more confident having done that preparation. I remember when I did my partner interview, I'd done a lot of preparation beforehand, and there were very few questions that came up during the meeting, which I hadn't thought about before. At the end of the interview, no doubt you'll be asked whether you have any questions for the partner, and make sure you make the most of that opportunity by having 2 or 3 good questions prepared beforehand. A good question in my mind is asking the partner how they see the team succeeding over the next few years. The partners spend a lot of time thinking about how the team can grow, whether that's by serving new clients or doing more work with existing clients. They'll definitely have an opinion on this topic. By asking this question, you're showing that you've got the team's success in mind and not just your own. Another good question to ask is about how they've navigated their career journey from starting off as a junior to manager, senior manager, and then on to partner. Asking them about how they made that transition is certainly a good topic of discussion. The question conveys that you're thinking about your own career journey over the long term, and you're focused on how you can move up the ranks at that firm. I hope you found that useful, and if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. If you want to learn more about what the different departments at the Big 4 accounting firms do, click on the video on your screen right now. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.